My watch says it's exactly 7 o'clock, so I'm going to call the Select Board meeting for July 16th, 2018 to order. Remind people that we are being recorded and ask that when you address the board that you come forward, identify yourself, and keep your voice up so that all can hear. We're hopefully going to be able to have a better sound system very shortly, but at this point we still need to keep the voice quite loud. I'm going to proceed with the consent agenda. We have the town accountant warrants, minutes from April 23rd, gift acceptance, Friends of Concord Carlisle Fields, $50,000 to the Friends of Concord Carlisle Fields field maintenance gift account, and Concord Carlisle Youth Baseball softball, $7,700 to the Ripley Baseball Field gift account. One-day special licenses, Belmont Hill School, September 17th, 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. at 246 Old Road to 9 Acre Corner, Wine and Malt. The Ragnarok Productions, LLC, July 27, 28, 6 p.m. to 11 p.m. at 57 Old Road to 9 Acres Corner, Wine and Malt. And on July 29th, 1 p.m. to 5 p.m., 57 Old Road to 9 Acre Corner, Wine and Malt. Sunday entertainment license to Ragnarok Production, LLC for July 29th, 1 to 5 p.m., 57 Old Road to 9 Acre Corner Theater. And then we also have a tour guide license. I will entertain a motion. I think we're going to be substituting the motion giver.
I move to accept the consent agenda as read.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. We now also approve the executive session minutes for June 18th, 2018, number 1 and number 2. I think we probably need a motion on that as
I
well,
move
do
to
we?
approve the executive committee minutes not to be released.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We now move to the town manager's report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The contractor for Mass DOT's Bruce Freeman Rail Trail project started work on the intersection of Commonwealth Avenue and Main Street. So there's new light stanchions that have been installed, and the end goal is to tee off that intersection and eliminate the right-hand turn from Main Street onto Com Ave, so everybody has to come to a right angle intersection, and that will avoid conflicts with cyclists using the Bruce Freeman Rail Trail. So that work started, and the goal is to complete that work by the end of August so that it's done before school opens and the busy traffic season returns. But you'll see work happening there during the next 6 weeks or so. The Recreation Department has a new BD Center General Manager, Andy Dutton. He comes to us from Babson College with 20 years of experience in facilities management and recreation. He was the Assistant Athletic Director. The Giroux Land closing is on for tomorrow at 10 o'clock, thanks to Kate. She kept the project alive. There were a few hiccups over the weekend, but it's still on. The Public Works Commission is meeting this week to consider a complete streets policy that other communities have adopted to support both pedestrians, cyclists, and motorists using the roads and sharing the road, that sort of thing. If they approve that policy, it will come to this board for adoption. The LED light installations, Dave Wood from the Light Plan indicated that since 2014, 13,722 LED lights have been installed through either their rebate program or their home energy audit program. So they've converted a lot of incandescent bulbs to LEDs. The Rec Department started a concert series in the Harvey Wheeler parking lot. They got a good response on July 12th. There's 2 more concerts next Wednesday and on the 19th and the 26th. At Harvey Wheeler. Let me see, the RFP has been issued for the next caretaker of the Harrington House on Harrington Avenue after the long-serving Peter Benish and his wife retired from that position. So applications are being sought for folks willing to live in the house at a discounted rent that will take care of the property. And we have reached a settlement of potential litigation with W.R. Grace that relates to the 2015 eminent domain taking of the 70 or so acres that they owned in Concord. We paid them what our appraiser said the land was worth. They disputed that value, and we have reached a settlement. That settlement requires town meeting approval, so I'll have it on your agenda for 2 weeks from now to consider the settlement with W.R. Grace, plus consider scheduling a fall special town meeting. We've reserved the high school for October 1st, if that's agreeable to the board, so we probably will have a special town meeting.
And the town moderator has
And the
agreed
town
that
moderator
that
has been
works, yeah.
consulted, and is available. And then lastly, on Friday, the fire department will honor those 2 young surfboarder paddlers who were at Walden Pond and helped a struggling swimmer get to safety. They'll be issuing a certificate of appreciation for the nice work that they did, helping somebody out that was struggling. So, thank you.
Do you have any questions, or?
We know when that event is going to be, Chris?
On Friday?
Is it
At Friday, and I don't have a time, but I can get that for you. I think it's Friday morning at the fire station. And thought I heard the fire department was going to issue a certificate, and I thought maybe the Coast Guard or some other agency was also going to do something to recognize their community spirit.
Do we know when the Harvey Wheeler celebration, wasn't there, we had a president?
Coming up in September.
Yeah.
That is, and I don't know if it's,
100th
it's the
year.
100th anniversary of the opening of the building or the laying of the cornerstone of the Harvey Wheeler Center. So I know that there's an effort underway to recognize that and celebrate that anniversary in September.
Nice to get that information out as well, so. But it's great to have Chris back. I must say that I do think the Assistant Town Manager, Kate, and it filled in, and did a great job in the entire office, Andrew and Heather also, so many thanks to them. We had, at the last meeting, asked that I send a letter to our representatives and chair of the committee encouraging the support for House Bill 4041 relating to the support of the honey beekeepers and greater regulation of the neonicotide, or whatever it's called. I'll let you see.
Alice can say.
Neonicotinoids.
There you go.
I've been practicing.
And thanks both to Mark Hanson and Mike for their advocacy on that. There was a civil suit filed on behalf of the town in the Concord District Court seeking the impoundment of Blue. The cooperation has not been forthcoming. We do not know that the fence has met the requirements. Hopefully, we'll be able to resolve it without having to have a long court battle, but we did feel that that was necessary to proceed with. I also want to thank the town moderator for creating a letter that will be sent by the town clerk to all newly registered voters in Concord. The letter explains in much the same way as the moderator does at town meeting how town government works in Concord and ways in which citizens can become involved in town government. Kari, the town clerk, was also most helpful and assured us that there's very limited cost to sending this letter, as a notice already goes out to new voters. And I think the letter will be able to be viewed on the town website, if not already, but certainly very shortly. And the next board meeting will be held at the, not be held at the townhouse due to the hearing room and the select board room AV upgrade. The upgrade will include assisted listening devices, a wireless projector and mounted screen which can be electronically retracted. Hopefully what is now sometimes called the non-hearing room will be truly a hearing room. And so the July 30th meeting will be at Harvey Wheeler. So with all of that in mind, I think we're probably at this point ready for the Natural Resource Commission to come forward. And I just want to give a brief preface before you give your presentation. The reason, the last select board meeting, the board revisited the town meeting warrant articles when discussing Article 44, which urged the NRC to adopt a 2-year moratorium on implementing any new NRC dog regulations on conservation land. We didn't really get a response on that. So there also had been reports of rangers issuing tickets to those walking dogs, and received a request from a board member to determine whether the rangers were ticketing on Fairyland. With that in mind, I want to thank the NRC for their conscientious efforts to protect the property under their jurisdiction. And it's really more to inform the town citizens and dog walkers what the rangers working with the NRC are charged with in regards to enforcing the regulations. So,
Okay, great. Thank you.
good evening.
I'm Greg Higgins. I'm the chair of this year on the NRC. Speaking to the article, it is not the intention of the NRC to further alter our regulations. We had a fairly long discussion in that regard, and after having met for a year and 18 meetings and what have you, and the controversy, it was not the sense of the commission that they wanted to alter them and remove any of the restrictions that were put on. So we're going forward as voted in December with a few changes, but very few. But the more serious one would be punkatassett in terms of the leash requirement. And it's our sense that for a couple of reasons, we're not basically, one is environmental in terms of the care of the property, which we spent 18 meetings discussing. And secondly is that it seems to us that we ought to have some place of public lands that a citizen who is afraid of dogs or has young children and doesn't want to walk with dogs has some place to go that dogs would be restricted, not run up and jump on them. And maybe we had several people. And in testimony over the 18, we had people tell us that they no longer walked in the woods where the dogs were very active because they were concerned about their own safety. So, it was a super majority vote to put it in, and it stands as such. But she can speak to the, I'm not in charge of the rangers.
That I think also is kind of enforcing the regulations.
Yeah, it's not our intent to enforce, but more inform. And our hope, quite frankly, is that it becomes the mores of the town that you do things like pick up dog waste. I mean, we're much better at that. The dog community is much better at that. There's no question about that. It still has a ways to go with issues like that. But we think that, as people get to know the rules and know that they can walk on virtually any other lands in the town with the dog off the leash that we except for farmlands and they'll take, they'll realize that we're trying to be as reasonable as possible.
The rangers, are they involved in Fairyland? Because that was one of the reports.
So they are. I can speak to the Rangers, Natural Resources Director Delia Kay, and we hired 2 young men, college students, to act as our rangers this year. It's the 3rd year of the ranger program, and the board may recall over the past couple of years, with 2 years ago, they were really focused on White Pond and ensuring compliance with the no swimming regulations at the pond. And then last year, we expanded that program so that they're looking at all conservation lands and trying to get a sense of what the activity is like. And so this year, their role is really to collect information and educate people on the new regulations. So yes, they're at Fairyland. They're at all our popular conservation lands. They're at Fairyland, Punk, Barrett's Mill Farm, a Nurse Snack Baptist Brook, October Farm Riverfront. They are circulating throughout all of these properties, talking to people, and then for the most part, they're receiving very good feedback from people. A lot of people are saying, thanks, we appreciate the efforts that the NRC has taken to make these lands available to all people who want to come out and visit them. There have been some issues where they've encountered non-compliance or people that don't agree with the regulations, and so there's 2 things that have come out of that. Some people are very pleasantly surprised. They thought it was all properties were required for leashing, which isn't the case. So they were pleasantly surprised that more than 70% of town conservation trails remain open for off-leash dog walking under effective control. There are a smaller subset of that group who still don't feel that the regulations should be in place. The role of the rangers is not to issue tickets. We're leaving that up to the police department. But what they are issuing are these, it's very similar to what the police department issues. It's called a courtesy tag, and it is basically just it's a courtesy violation. It sort of says if you had received a fine, you would have received a fine for one of these actions, and we're providing you with this reminder in order to help you avoid a fine in the future.
One question I have, just because as the NRC liaison, I know that we had some correspondence from a resident who received, I believe, a ticket like this in Fairyland. And Fairyland, that was a surprise to me, and maybe I've missed something along the way, but I didn't know that Fairyland was included in the dogs on leash.
It's not, he was not in violation of dogs on leash.
Right, so it would have been something, and I don't know the specifics of that. I didn't realize that was, so,
I think I did have a coffee with that individual, and we chatted about it. I thought it was a pretty good relationship he had with the ranger, actually, when it boiled down.
It was more a question on my end.
His dog was not, within voice, right, near him on the trail. His dog, apparently the dog had wandered off. He talked to him about it, but it seemed to have been amicably settled. But he thought he was going to get a ticket. Yes, he did, and wondered what a ticket was like. And he never saw. Apparently, he never saw the green ticket because it ended smoothly.
Okay, but just to clarify, there is no on-leash or leash law
at Fairyland,
requirement
no, there's
in
no, only at Punk and food-producing ag lands. Those are the only new ones. And then the
That's what I
long-standing ones of
remember, so that's why
Madison
I
and
was surprised.
No,
White
that's
Pond.
true.
So there are, at all conservation lands, we've tried to better define what effective control means, and it's really clarifying expectations that have been in place for many years. That, but we heard a lot during that extensive public process, what do you mean by effective control? So the commission spent several meetings trying to define what that looked like. And, common sense, it means your dog listens to you when you call to it, and it comes if you ask it to come. And so, there are new requirements that you leash up in the parking lot. Your dog is going to be most active when it first gets out of the car and it wants to go bounding down the trails. And if there's somebody coming out and they feel a little cautious around dogs, as some people do, just out of respect, you just want to have them leashed in these unleashed areas until you reach a sign that says unleashing. So, we've got these signs up around town. It's basically welcome to our conservation land. And I have copies, but they're black and white, but I'll distribute those. And so on properties where leashes are not required, you will see that you're going to come to a sign that, 100 yards in or some distance in, it will say unleash here. So this is the point where you can release your dog, and then on the flip side of that is going to be on the same sign, this is where you need to leash up so that your dog is not interfering with other people who are getting in and out of their cars in the parking lot. So it's really just clarifying expectations of what effective control should mean so that we are all clear on what that means, is the goal for that.
I guess my one concern I had in the notion of the ticketing was that during the discussions on the meetings that you had, there was talk of issuing fines and issuing, in fact, impoundment. And as we kind of have learned the hard way, impounding
wouldn't-
dogs are
we
not
wouldn't-
an easy process.
We would not be looking to impound anybody's dog.
Well, that was just mentioned in the discussion, so,
So
it
there is the
wasn't.
possibility, there's the possibility, the commission has the authority to issue fines. And if it's something where it's just an ongoing,
And my
we don't
concern on
anticipate
that is just, I want to make sure that the citizens, the due process, issues in terms of if there's a fine, how does one appeal it? and, how are they enforced? Well,
Right.
what are the rights of the individuals? So,
Right, yep, absolutely.
And
So we,
I don't know if I've heard much of a discussion about that during the process, so I'm glad to hear that you all are,
That's all codified in your,
so it would be presumably under the non-criminal disposition bylaw that would be issued. And it's not, to me, it's not the role of the rangers or the staff or the commission to be going out and writing tickets. That's what we have the police department for, and if we've said all along, I mean, all these things have come up during the discussions, but we've also said all along, we see the role of the rangers as being educating around what we're trying to implement here.
They're also gathering information about how many people they saw. Did they have dogs? Did they not have dogs? Did they park correctly? Did they not? So we'll have some of that background information because, and we've asked the dog walkers to do the same for us so that eventually we will have some more facts than we have currently.
I reviewed the Ranger report of 2017 by Adam D.N. Azastino, and it was very thorough. It was very interesting, but I was always, I'm always concerned, what type of training do they have? And law enforcement is a tricky process.
Sure.
And we want to make sure that we're somewhat cautious of it. And I think rangers shouldn't be in that position. I think you're correct. The educational side and
They're not.
They're
They're
not.
absolutely not, no.
They're not.
okay.
And if they did, they really should let staff know, and I'm sure Delia would, as their discipline, would take care of it.
Good.
And now, I understand that there's also a survey that's just.
I just wanted to bring that up, yes, thank you. So in an effort to get more feedback from people on how visitors to conservation lands are experiencing the new regulations, we have distributed a survey as of last week. We've put notices up on all the kiosks at Town Conservation Land, and it has a QR code as well as a link, which is concordma.gov/conslandsurvey. So we are really hoping that we get feedback from everybody, so we have real clear information from the users of the conservation land, as well as the information that the rangers are collecting.
Terrific. Anybody else have any questions, or?
You will see, and just because we are disseminating this to a lot of folks, hopefully, you will see more signage out there, much to the dismay of some of us, but we feel it's necessary. So there is a change out there at trailheads that some people might find a little overkill, but till we can get this information out and people understand it, because people are coming from other towns and what have you. So we're working on that, and maybe someday we wouldn't need such extensive.
Well, I say, to me, the point of tonight was to get information out.
Yeah, no kidding.
Let people
Yeah, fine.
understand, because I think sometimes we can get into a situation where there's not trust and people make wrong assumptions. And it's important to get the facts out there and make sure people do understand what the rules and regulations and the ticketing and all of that's all about.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is Phil? Yeah, Phil is here. You're the next agenda item, which is the discussion of a possible permanent municipal building committee.
Okay. Thank you, Tom.
Identify yourself and, 1 second, yeah.
when is public comment going to be allowed?
Where it is on the agenda, which is item number 12.
Okay. Philip Swain, 114 Pine Hill Lane, and member of the Finance Committee. Tom Tarpey, who is the chair of the Finance Committee, is also here. And there will be a letter that Tom is working on explaining this proposal. But briefly, at its last meeting on June 28th, the Finance Committee voted unanimously to recommend to this board that it consider establishing a permanent building committee, and that was based on a motion that I made. The idea behind this is that this committee would have general responsibility for supervising the design and construction of all significant public buildings, structures, and recreational facilities in town, including school buildings and facilities, and including significant repair and reconstruction projects on existing public buildings. And that committee would include experienced citizens in towns that would have experience in construction projects, architects, engineers, and contractors, and people who are knowledgeable about those things. It could employ professionals, would be empowered to sign contracts, and it would be subject to approval of the various constituencies in town and the committees and boards that are in charge of these projects. And FinCom chose to make this proposal because they thought a committee that would develop expertise in this sort of project would be able to save the town a significant amount of money, especially as it develops expertise. And part of the idea behind the word permanent is that that committee would become a standing committee, and the members would develop expertise not only in the projects, but in the various entities that do these things, such as the Massachusetts School Building Authority, and over the years, they would learn how to work with those entities. Now, after we made that proposal and began to write it up, we learned that the town of Concord actually had such a committee that existed for many years, going back to 1947. Our recording secretary, Anita Tekel, looked into it, and she learned that it was established, as a matter of fact, the first permanent building committee in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, established by town meeting vote in 1947, and it was originally set up to be appointed by the Select Board back then, consisting of 5 members, with pretty much the same charter I just described. And in the notes that I think I circulated to Tom, I described its charter, and that's going to be in the letter, I think that letter that Tom is working on. And then as the committee evolved and the town meeting charter, or the town charter changed to a strong town meeting manager model, the appointment authority changed to the town manager in 1955. Anyways, over the years, that committee, which is actually called the General Building Committee, had a very active docket. It built all 4 elementary schools, Alcott, Thoreau, Willard, and Ripley. It rebuilt the Emerson, what was then the Emerson High School, is now Emerson Umbrella. It built what was called the Harvey Wheeler School, is now the Harvey Wheeler Housing Project. It constructed bathrooms at the Old North Bridge when it was in the purview of the town before it got turned over to the National Park. It built the new police and fire station. It did several rounds of renovations in this townhouse. It also did the preliminary, at least the preliminary designs for the what was then the first junior high school. I guess it was Sanborn. I'm not sure, we weren't sure it completed that, but probably did. And had various projects up until the late 1970s, early 1980s. And then I guess the municipal building projects slowed down, and the committee was either deactivated or, taken out of commission for a while, and they had no activity. And so one thing this committee could consider is just reactivating that actual committee, the General Building Committee, since it technically was already created, or it could establish a new committee. Most towns call them, there are about 20, we were able to locate about 27 towns that have permanent building committees, calling themselves permanent building committees.
Currently.
Yes, and probably more. I'm familiar with them because I come from Norwood. My dad was on that permanent building committee for 40 years, but I know some of the projects they did, and I know that they really did develop a lot of knowledge about school and municipal building projects. But I know that a lot of the towns around here have them. Carlisle just established one last year. The one in Carlisle, I think, is called the Municipal Facilities Committee. But another thing that could be considered, I don't know how this would work, but if the towns wanted to try and work with the regional school district, another thing that could be done is the two town building committees could try and work with the regional school district on building projects there too. So anyways, it's something that we think the select board should consider as a way of really taking on a significant role in building projects and being able to take a load off of the ad hoc committees that we use now for building projects.
Can I, in the research that you did in putting this together, do you have any knowledge as to whether of the 27 or whatever number of towns that have some form of a permanent municipal building committee? Are they all, do any of them have a strong town manager form of government?
I honestly don't know. I can give you the list of towns, and I don't, Chris probably knows which ones have strong, they're in my notes. But if, for example, Arlington, Belmont, Lexington, yeah.
So
Okay, I just was,
So we've approached this historically by creating ad hoc committees, as you sort of said at the end. I'm
Yes.
familiar with the Willard School one, the high school one. Just a very side note, when you send, we had a little write-up that at least I got an email attachment from Andrew probably, but when you say schools, make sure you delineate public schools as opposed to the district.
Right. So this, for now, this is something for the town of Concord. I think in order to do the regional school district, we'd have to reach an agreement with the regional school district.
I just, when you said the word schools,
Yeah,
you
private
just want.
Yes.
I guess I'm not sure how I feel about this. We'll have to learn more about it. But I thought the two school building committees that I saw function terrifically. That was the Willard one and the high school building committee. There were only two you've seen, Minuteman's building committee too. What's the shortcoming of that approach? Especially since membership of committees turns over. Your dad might have served for 40 years, but that's not the way Concord staffs its committees. Everybody kind of spends their time and then moves on, so.
Well, I don't know, we could get into an extended debate, I guess. The Finance Committee had some differences on the buildings. You look at some of the different projects. A permanent building committee might have come to a different approach on the high school or some of the projects at the high school or the Willard School or all of the different projects. So
it's motivated by the notion they didn't do a good job?
No.
Town money if they.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying that a permanent building committee could have developed expertise that would have made it easier, that's all. We're approaching now some more big building projects, like the middle school. And, we're going to, one of the things that a permanent building committee would have developed is the expertise in dealing with the Massachusetts School Building Authority. And, even no matter what you think of the high school building project, there was some difficulty with dealing with the Massachusetts School Building Authority. And so, just knowing that, and I don't know how much we want to go into detail, but there were problems with the Willard, there were problems with the high school. There still are problems with each of those building projects. There are things that people that are experts in building and construction might have picked up on.
Thank you.
I think you've given us something to think about,
Yeah.
and it's an interesting proposal, and appreciate the Finance Committee looking at these type of innovative, in some ways, proposals to save the town money, because obviously that reduces or stabilizes taxes and allows funds for other beneficial things. So, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
So we're going to get like a formal,
I think so, yeah.
From you guys?
Tom is putting together a letter.
and just one last question. even though this is coming from the finance committee, clearly this would not be a committee under the finance committee. This is
Oh, no, no.
just, it's an idea that came up in conversation at the finance.
Yeah, this is within the jurisdiction of the select board, I believe,
Right, I
yeah.
just wanted to,
Manager.
Yeah.
right, yeah.
Great, thanks, Phil.
We now move on to item number 9, which is the process for the town manager search committee. I think a fair amount of material has been sent out. I got Alice's contributions, which I appreciate. She knew she wasn't going to be able to speak loudly tonight, so.
Or at all.
And I think that the sort of major issues kind of get to be, first of all, the membership, how many of the select board, whether 1 or 2, and how large a committee there should be. Then the duties and responsibilities are fairly well spelled out. We've seen other towns with their duties and have been. And I guess I'm kind of open to some discussion here as to how best people should proceed. I think the thought is probably that a consultant of some type does make sense, and the degree of the duties of responsibilities of the consultant, something that I think that we need to sort of consider. That I don't think anybody wants a consultant to be the one who kind of leads the charge and makes the decisions, but assists the committee.
Well, I think you and I both attended the same municipal association meeting, and Massachusetts Municipal Association meeting, and there was a breakout session on town manager searches. And that breakout session certainly convinced me of the importance of engaging a consultant in this process, if for no other reason than the fact that we are besieged right now in a huge turnover in town managers. And we want to make sure that Concord has advice into how to access the pool of potential applicants and find someone of, someone that we are excited about, or a pool of, hopefully, of candidates that would be exciting to the town.
Yeah, I think in addition to access to a pool, the other thing that I think is important and helpful about a consultant is that they will be able to help this committee define a process. They've done it any number, I don't know how many times because we don't know yet, but they will have done it. And I think one of the important things that will help ensure success of this search is having a well-defined, articulated process that we're going to go through that everybody can understand and they can see in the process where they have input. And so it's quite seamless that way. I watched the school committee when they did it, and I don't think we should try to replicate what they did, but I think the knowledge of potential applicants and being able to define a process with milestone dates and helping them ensure that therefore the public could see how they could participate were critical.
And as somebody who was a parent during that process and I attended the final results, I certainly felt engaged at that point, and that.
And we were asked as town officials to participate in one, and I thought that was a very effective way of making sure everybody had an opportunity to do sense. And we're lucky, and I mean, we're unlucky in the sense that this is leaving. We're unlucky again because there's a lot of town managers, but we're Concord, so. But one of the good things that I think is going to be helpful to us is we're coming to the end of our long-range plan.
Right.
So a lot of the things about, what's important, what are we going to do, that kind of stuff is really already, we've had a lot of citizen input to that, so that shouldn't be a mystery to anybody. So I think that's really terrific.
That can be our first quiz.
Well, I think that's also very appealing to the candidates, to have kind of a pretty good working knowledge of what the town sees as its issues and what the candidate needs to be addressing in order to be a good town manager. So I do think that's a huge advantage.
I don't remember, go ahead, sorry.
I was just going to underscore the importance of a well-defined process and the confidence that that gives potential candidates to participate when they see a well-defined process, and particularly since confidentiality until the very end is so key to probably the caliber of people that we want to attract, so.
So I've forgotten, Chris, but what is it that enables a committee like this to not operate in open sessions? I mean,
The finalists are a public
Finalists.
record, and that's,
Oh, yeah, for sure.
but in order to evaluate people's performance and.
no, I know the finalists.
Right, have to be made
don't
public.
they?
and-
What is it that allows a committee like the one that's proposed here?
Isn't it Section 8 of the open meeting law?
Is there a particular section that
Yeah.
allows this committee to operate?
Yes.
Okay.
And of course, that's one of the reasons I would imagine that we'd be limited to 2 members of the select board.
Yeah, yes.
Yeah. I guess the question is, should it be 2 or should it just be 1?
Right. I mean, in other words, it's not going to get bigger, and I assume that when we look at the 5 citizens at large, if that's the number that we stay with, we also need to be reticent of any conflicts in boards and committees.
What do you mean by
We can't pull more
that?
than
People from committees?
from.
More than 2
certain
people
a
from-
committee, so that we're not actually just,
Well, could we even choose people from committees? Wouldn't that sort of violate our rule about?
well, citizens at large, I'm not sure. I didn't read this as
Well, I think
not on a committee.
I think you could, your policy on appointments does allow you, if there was someone that you really wanted to see participate and happened to sit on a committee, Sally Schnitzer, I recall, was on the search committee when I was hired, and she was on the planning board at the time.
Okay. Well, I don't know who was responsible for writing this, but I think this is really good.
But I think the also included was the draft calendar of events, which had July 30th to approve a committee charge for Town Manager Search Committee and issue a call for volunteers, and then by September 1st to seat a search committee, have the officers, and set up a calendar for committee meetings. And I think during that period of time, we probably should also, they have the committee planning, interview search consultants. We may want to jumpstart that. But does that calendar make sense to people?
One thing that caught my attention, I didn't have a chance to check this. Have we determined roughly when town meeting's going to occur in the spring?
Yes.
Is it
Yeah.
April 9th, I
Set the
think.
dates.
Right,
yeah, we had-
it's the second week in April,
second week in April?
just like it was this year, second Monday.
So, yeah, what I'm thinking is,
April 10th date.
yeah, well, it would be helpful if by then we've identified the final list of candidates. So they might have the opportunity to attend town meeting because one of those candidates is going to then step into the aftermath of,
Yep.
Yeah, that's a good suggestion.
Who made this calendar? Is it
I
Chris?
think that
Trying to
was,
stay at arm's length from this process, but
you're trying to have,
Wait a minute.
so it's just a sample, and the HR director, Amy Foley, who will be working with the committee, once the committee gets appointed, has been in touch with some consultants, and they have their own schedule. But this was my guess at how it might look.
Okay.
we may want to see whether the notion of having the finalists be able to attend town meeting, I think that's an excellent suggestion. So. Any other comments or written proposals? Well, thank you. We now,
Let me ask you, so will we post this as a draft and then approve it on the 30th? Is that the plan?
yeah, I would think that makes sense.
So then people could look at it.
Yeah.
If they have some comment, they could send it.
Yeah.
and so-
I think you've already received some have some people contacted you to volunteer for this committee, or not yet?
I've received a couple of emails from people,
So then you'll make a call for volunteers when you
Yes.
approve the charge at your next meeting.
But again, a detail, for every committee that I know of, we've gone to the green cards. We're not obligated to do that.
That's right.
If there's somebody we think, boy, it's really getting, making a green card for us, but that's where we could,
and I think that the notion is that there is a public input process, so that just the fact that a particular group might not be a member of the committee, they're still going to have input from that group.
oh yeah, item number 5 here on
Yeah.
this list is that's what it says, and it's absolutely critical.
I
While
can't
we're-
imagine.
While we're talking, sorry,
ahead.
while we're talking about that, I did question the order of 4 and 5. I wasn't sure if there was an implied order there. But we may need 5 in order for the materials to be put together differently, that need to be distributed to the potential candidates.
Well, there was some order to this, but I don't think it's a
Well, that's-
checklist.
Yeah, I wasn't sure just how, yeah.
Yeah, but just to your point, this isn't a order, a do it in order or an order of priority.
Okay.
Item number 10 is your agenda item, town manager evaluation update. Andrew, I think we're going to get that sent out, or you got, oh, okay, you got to here. What I would ask is it form the process that we use of get information to me just, and then I'll draft it up, and we will probably get that finalized certainly before September 1st. And I think any public input is also obviously welcomed. Item number 11 is the business recognition program. I handed Mike
You did.
an item which I had just received today, and I will hand out,
Continued to get input on the proposal that I articulated last time, and you might remember briefly that it was essentially recognizing on an annual basis those businesses that have been here in Concord serving the citizens for 25, 50, 75, and 100 years, and then with the 100-year winter proclamation, folks have suggested that we start at 50, not 25, so I think that's a good idea. And we have a candidate, I didn't know this. This is for those that don't have it. It's a listing of the history of the D Funeral Home, which right down the street, as you know, which has been in business for 151 years. I don't know what they get.
Wow.
So, and then we have another business that I reported last time is in its 100th year. That's Farrell Farm. And so our job, I think, is to meet with town officials, be able to go over records and get a list of when businesses were started.
and I think we may have a proposal tonight that rather than sort of doing all of them, do kind of one a year, so it becomes more specialized. And I think that's something that, we can consider. That,
Are you saying one in each category of time? So
Yeah.
one 100-year, one
100 or more. And
I would really be ticked off if I was there 100 years and you were here 100 years and you got recognized and I didn't.
Right.
You get it the next year.
Totally ticked off.
You get it the next
No,
year.
because then Jane could come in at 100 and I could lose twice. I'm not going for this at all.
We'll make sure that doesn't happen, Mike.
I don't, I mean, I'm serious.
Yeah.
I think if you've been in this town serving its citizens for 50 years, the town should recognize that accomplishment.
And then I think the next issue
And I don't
is,
want to be in the business of picking one. We won't have to pick the hundreds, but there's probably a handful at 50. I don't want to pick them.
Yeah, no, fair enough.
50 years.
I think what we want then is the discussion of kind of what type of recognition, a
Sure.
plaque, or how that's done. And
I think I'll work with Andrew, and I see Mr. Montague sitting over there, and work with him and see if we can come up with
Yeah.
a prototype for you for doing this. And I really would add, though, that if you've been here 151 years, I don't know how long Vanderhoos has been here, but they must have been here for a long time, too. And Beryl, you know,
Yeah.
we ought to do,
yeah.
we ought to go out there and,
Let us know.
so we'll
And
do
you
that.
had suggested a particular date that we would do it on.
We would do it sort of yeah, I think just for regularity, we would do it, I just said on Concord's birthday, on his founding day. I don't think there's anything particular about it.
September
That-
12th.
That seems like a good time to do it. And if we work hard, we might be able to get it.
So you may have a flurry of them the first year that this is initiated, and then you could go for.
We could go for years and years, right? So, because I know a business that's been in business for 43 years, so they have to wait. 7 years.
Well, let's just wait until public comments, which actually is the next item. And so what we will do is to start, because I know that Terry's after you, so why don't you come forward and, oh, I meant Bill start out, and then we'll work our way around to public, 'cause there may be a fair number of public comments. So, Bill, do you want to step forward?
I would like to, when I'm doing this.
First, identify yourself
Montague,
with your
on Mullen
address.
Street in Concord, Mass. I own Montague Gallery. You know, I'd like to pass this around because in doing some research, I come across a surprise to me that was businesses a lot older than we think.
That may be the same one that I have. Why don't you maybe spread those out? I made copies for the board.
Oh, okay. Anyway, it's basically, Ye Funeral Home has been in business for 150 years. And the surprising part is, you know, they buried all of Concord notables. Emerson and Thoreau and Alcott's, I mean, my God. So I'm thinking, why not have just to start out, to have a special, just one award for those people to get our feet wet and how this doing, because it's not going to be a simple process. I was suggesting that we come up with a bronze or aluminum, a metal award plaque that would be a standard for the town. And you can engrave anything you want on there, but I talked to Bill Crosby, and he will work on something, come up with some proposals that look and present to you, and guys, you can pick out what you think. But what he would do is be engrave the words on there. We'd have a standard plaque, and this could be given out by the Historic Commission, who just give an award for the building, Peterson Building, whatever you call it in the corner. And so that's something they could give out. It'd be nice if you had something substantial to put on your building rather than just a piece of paper.
You're not suggesting that they give it out instead of the select board, are you?
And
You're not suggesting that the historic commission give it
No,
out
no.
instead of the select
No, I'm
board?
saying-
We want to do the,
the Historic Commission had just awarded linear retail.
Right.
And then Hawthorne Inn, so I'm thinking, well, they could use this also.
yeah.
You know, if it's a standard
Format.
plaque we could use for the town. And I would put on there the things that people, Concord is noted for, Concord grapes, and the Minuteman, the North Bridge, and Walden Pond, and then a crow quill for the Concord authors, past and present. So that's only my only suggestion to this would be,
Well, we'll be in touch. We'll get some stuff,
Pardon?
we'll get some stuff organized and be in
Yeah.
touch with you about that.
Thank you for your initiative on all of
Yeah.
this and your
Thank you.
research. Jerry, would you?
Terry Rothamel, 330 Musketequid Road. I came here to listen to the NRC's presentation and to possibly comment. Their departure from this meeting before comments probably says that they've heard criticisms before. But I would just note one point. I'll be emailing them tomorrow. One point is that it was stated that they have only made minor adjustments to their December vote of last year in face of the town meeting vote that instructed them otherwise. And it seems to me that the enforcement measures they've taken, including the signage, is an escalation in their policy. And I think in the face of a town meeting vote. That's all I have to say tonight.
Thank you. Would anybody who else would like to make a comment? We'll try to go around in a somewhat orderly fashion. Do we have any other public comments? Yes, please, Jean.
Jean Goldsberry, 1832 Main Street. I have a letter which I will distribute copies of for the select board members. And I would like to read this letter so that it goes into the public record. This is written to Tom McKean, Chair of the Select Board, and to the Select Board. In response to the 2014 Town Governance Study Committee, which recommended the Select Board consider developing a policy regarding public-private corporate collaborations, a request from the Concord Carlisle League of Women Voters to review existing public-private partnerships, and a 2011 Finance Committee Best Practices for Private Funding of Public Services report, the board appointed a 9-member public-private partnership study committee in February 2016. This P3 committee, so I don't have to do Peter Piper, picked a peck of pickled peppers anymore. This P3 committee submitted its report to the Select Board in December 2016, and after several discussions of the findings, the board adopted a P3 policy on July 10th, 2017. Fast forward to the Select Board's June 18th, 2018 meeting when a public-private partnership update was on the agenda. 5 of the 9 former P3 committee members were present and came away from that discussion feeling very disappointed. Town Manager Chris Whalen acknowledged he had not followed through on enacting the policy voted a year ago. He said he was working on developing and posting on the town website a list of existing public-private partnerships in Concord. However, there are several other items that are part of the Select Board's approved policy. Number 1, on an annual basis, the town manager will provide a summary of the review of all existing partnerships at a public meeting held by the Select Board. Also, the town manager develops a schedule so the Select Board can review significant partnerships involving $150,000 or more that have existed for more than a year. To date, no listing of P3s with information about each partnership has been posted on the town website. Also, at the June 18th meeting, the board seemed a little unsure about what constitutes a public-private partnership. The P3 committee also labored extensively over a definition and came up with the following, and this is an excerpt from our December 2016 report. A public-private partnership, P3, is a relationship between a public body and a private body in which the resulting product is a governmental asset or a public benefit, not always physical. This relationship involves monetary or physical assets of the town. A service contract, grant, and/or gift do not necessarily create a public-private partnership. However, a P3 may receive grants and/or gifts. The P3 policy also includes guidelines for new partnerships, which must have a memorandum of understanding between the town and the private organization. The content of an MOU was contained in Appendix A, which was not included with the supporting materials for the June 18th meeting. I think that has been remedied at this point. The former members of the P3 committee are concerned that their work has not been implemented in a timely manner. When the committee was created, many in town were concerned about the lack of transparency surrounding such partnerships, and this is just some examples. As CC at Play, which ultimately cost the town $1,253,000 in CPC funds. Emerson Umbrella, a $20 million renovation and expansion of a town-owned building, and the Concord Free Public Library proposed $8.5 million for renovations. We urge the Select Board to follow the policies it developed to maintain information about P3s on the town's website, available to all, and to implement the schedule and review process in a timely manner and on an annual basis. Thank you for your consideration, and it's signed by the former members of the Public-Private Partnership Study Committee, Carol Aronson, Ingrid Detweiler, Miguel Escovari, Jean Goldsberry, Robert Grom, Dory Kehoe, Peter Mahler, and Tom Rarich.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other public comments? Please come forward. Yep.
I'm Michael Dettelbach from 89 Assabet Avenue. I want to thank the Select Board for this is in respect to the Natural Resources Commission's report on their enforcement or not enforcement policy of the new regulations they've imposed on Punkatassett. I want to thank you for probing exactly what the nature of the policy is, and I have to confess I remain confused. My teenage daughter happened to, I have yet to encounter a ranger, though I still walk on that land. But my teenage daughter did and came away very upset by her encounter with a ranger and very confused as to what she was being blamed for, since her dog was being quite well behaved and sitting by her side. And evidently, I guess my concern was that the ranger was not able to explain exactly what his own task was, and she came away feeling that she had been threatened with a fine or a ticket.
Can I just ask for clarification? Where was your daughter?
This is Punkatassett.
Okay, I just,
Yep.
okay.
This is Punkatassett. And after hearing the NRC present tonight and hearing your very good questions, I still remain confused as to whether this is an enforcement policy or this is an education policy, because those two things are not compatible. And that was the whole point of the town meeting vote. And I just wanted to make that point, and to say that I wish that the Select Board had been a little firmer to point out that the NRC is essentially ignoring the sense of the town that was expressed at town meeting. I wish that we had the opportunity to do education at Punkatassett, but it seems like we don't. Instead, it seems like what gets assumed is that there was some remarkable problem with dog waste and the place was overrun with dogs and keeping families from walking on Punkatassett. None of that had been established. Freedom of information to all the correspondence that the NRC had received over the last 3 years with respect to walking on conservation land and dogs. A total of 25 letters over communications, emails over 3 years. There were indeed some communications that said I have never, or I haven't walked on that land in 10 years because I don't like dogs, or very few indications of any actual events or encounters. If anything is keeping people from walking on Punkatassett, it's the lack of safe parking there. That would keep me and little kids from going there. In any case, my point is, I wish the board had been a little firmer with the NRC in pointing out that they defied essentially the sense of the town at town meeting, and I hope that they will take the opportunity to do so at a later date.
I hope you will, use your email to communicate directly with them. As you probably may understand, we don't have kind of direct oversight. There's a little bit of a question. I mean, the reason that we got involved kind of with the Rangers as such is they are more involved with kind of the town because they're funded with funds that come from the town that go to the NRC. It's not an so we have a little bit of a jurisdiction there. We don't have really any jurisdiction over the issue of their regulations.
Well, I don't know. I question that. So Carlisle also had an issue of their dog regulations. We have dog bylaws in town that govern the behavior of dogs and the use of dogs on all public land, including conservation land, which the town owns. So I'm confused by the opinion that we don't have the power to regulate what happens on.
Bylaw. This is not a
Right.
bylaw. This is a state.
Oh, no, I understand. No, Carlisle made the decision to pursue the regulation of dogs on public land through the dog bylaw rather than giving the issue to their conservation commission.
I don't know this, so I'm speaking a little bit. If we don't have any jurisdiction, they have jurisdiction over their lands by state law. We
Oh,
can't.
no, I understand.
Yeah.
They can regulate, they can do whatever
We
they
couldn't-
want. We
we-
have no power. I understand that. It doesn't mean that you don't have also power to make regulations on the behavior.
No, not on their land.
We had a town council wrote us very clear guidance on that before town meeting, because we wanted to know going into town meeting what the parameters of what we could do was. I mean.
The same goes for the school committee on school property.
Yeah.
You can't tell the school committee what they have to do.
Okay, well, thank you for that. But we could say defund the Rangers.
Correct.
Or something like that, although I hate to take away jobs from college students. Anyway,
No, but I appreciate your comment.
There is the
and I
opportunity
hope
to
you
make
take their online survey.
I have several times. Well, because you can do it for each, you're supposed to do it for each property. I did not,
We won't get into
on
it,
the
all right?
But one thing I have done is start to do what I wish that the NRC had done before, which is create an online trail report form.
Yeah.
Which is to be used for every time you walk on the land. We've got about 30 users now. We're generating about 50 to 70 reports every week on land. And all the information goes to a spreadsheet. And so it's just a citizen science thing. The more people who use it, the better our data are. You can see the patterns in the usage of land, the experience of people using the land on a walk-to-walk basis. Again, because now the law of Punkatassett is that you have to be leashed, I've made names optional so that people don't have to reveal that they're breaking the law. And I would hope that everyone here, I've got information on it, QR code if you want to, uses it, and that if it were possible if there was some method for the town to also distribute the information, that would be great too. Anyway, it's the kind of thing that I wish we had done before regulations were imposed, so we could actually gather the scale of the problem.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I guess we've got 2 or 3 more, so.
Ellie Bemis, 858 Monument Street.
Your voice up, so yes, best you can.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, much better.
Not
Apparently in the
everybody
back,
can.
it's not that, so even
That doesn't
louder.
amplify the sound, Ellie.
Oh, it doesn't? What is it?
It's just for the cable TV audience.
Oh, okay. I just have to speak in support of the NRC. I'm upset with myself that I didn't stand up at town meeting. I don't understand how anyone could have voted for this article of urging the NRC such and such after hearing the NRC clarifying their role and you, the selectmen, also clarifying their role. They are independent and their role is to protect our natural resources. they don't have to give evidence of why they have a dog leashing, if they feel that the natural resources are in jeopardy. Our biggest asset in Concord are our wonderful open spaces, and I think they've done an excellent job of supporting that. And I think their whole process all last year was exceptional. I would sometimes go to their meetings just to have a little faith in government again.
Well, I would only say that the vote was 234 in favor of the warrant article, 152 against. And one of the things over the July 4th, reading the Declaration of Independence, it's the consent of the governed. And I think that may have been kind of missed in the process a little bit. But thank you for your comments.
I think, they're, especially the ruling they've put on Punkatassett, I think a lot of people don't know the whole history of Punkatassett and its role in supporting Harvard's land as a nature preserve, and the efforts of all the, for the past 50 years to preserve land around that for that goal, and the amount of money, town money, citizen money spent on that. And the landowners who originally sold their land to Harvard at a reduced price, one of them being my grandfather, he also owned Punkatassett, and he loved having the town. He didn't sell it. My aunt inherited it when he died and sold it to the town. And yes, the idea was to have the town enjoy it, families to enjoy it, but the underlying premise was that it would be preserved as the rest of Estabrook, and it was in support of that. And I think people really need to know that.
Thank you very much. Yes.
Liza Carter, 34 Hubbard Street. I have a couple of points. One is I was stopped by a ranger in Punkatassett, and education basically is a threat, is that if you have your dog off leash, you'll get a ticket. So I don't, just a data point, but I found it unpleasant, and I think it's a huge waste of the town's resources to be spending money on this thing that's clearly against the sense of the town and the desire for access to the land that we have all enjoyed. Speaking to the signs, they're territorial markings. They're peeing on the land, to use a dog metaphor, by putting these completely unnecessary signs on. It's like, we all are responsible. We know when it's safe to unleash or leash our dogs. It's like, it truly is an expansion of what they're doing, and I think it's completely contrary, again, to what the sense of the meeting was. The survey that they have put out, they have complete no trust from all the dog walkers. They started it after they implemented the regulations, so just for starters, whatever data they collect is completely flawed and is, again, a waste of time. And they do request names. I have no trust that they're going to use this information in any kind of real way, so I'm not participating in it, and I'm sure that there's many, many other people that feel the same way that I do. And the big, issue is that they started after the implementation of the regulations, so they haven't documented a problem. They've put in all this stuff on a perceived problem that has had no documentation, and in fact, I would suggest it doesn't exist. So again, that's completely crazy. And I think that the elephant that's not being talked about is the role of the abutters to Estabrook, and particularly in pressuring the NRC and the town to put in these regulations. And until we actually are talking about the real issue, all of this is just a lot of spinning our wheels.
Thank you. Yes.
Stuart Weeks, 100 Newbury Court. On another note, and with appreciation for the kinds of exchanges we can have in such a setting, I want to give a brief report on the Concord Nobel Prize for Peace, with a question of what relationship it might find to the town officially. The There are now representatives of 70 institutions in Concord. D Funeral Home and Verrill were mentioned earlier. They are among the panelists who will determine the recipients of the prize, one individual in the political sphere, the economic sphere, and the cultural sphere. The nominees are beginning to come in. Mahatma Gandhi, who 5 times was denied the Nobel Peace Prize, is one of the recipients. The prize was launched on the 4th of July, and among the more recent institutions, as we look towards the 400th anniversary of Concord's founding as the first non-native inland community in the country, the different sectors of the community, political, economic, and cultural, are coming together, along with D and Verrill, the Chamber of Commerce, the president of the Chamber of Commerce, the executive director of the Community Chest, superintendent of the schools, then Bank of America, Caldwell Brothers, Paparazzi. So we're reaching out to the different aspects of the community. Best Western, the prison, there'll be representatives on the panels to select the recipients, the annual recipients of the prize, and the Thoreau Farm, along with approximately 50 others. So this is simply an update. Our hope is that with this prize, Concord means peace, among the meanings of the word, that we can address the essential prerequisites for peace. We're in a situation, as many people know, that many children go to school with trepidation, given the school shootings. We also have the concerns on the global and nuclear level. Our hope is not only can we bring a new perspective to this question of peace, but that Concord can be an example for other communities to come together, the different sectors, and to find out what their particular gifts are and what they can do as a community to contribute towards our greater good. So again, this is just an update after our launching on July 4th, and we'll be bringing the question, what sort of relationship, if any, might we find these 70-plus institutions, organizations in Concord to the town itself. So thank you. Thank you.
Just one quick, what sort of is the nature of the prize? Is it going to be kind of I assume it's not a monetary award the way the Nobel Prize is, that there's some sort of, is the idea a plaque, or what type of prize?
There are a number of suggestions that have come forward. The Nobel laureates receive a gold medal. The laurel branch was given also to victors in war. So the whole Concord Nobel Prize for Peace is inspired by Thoreau's words, that is the uncommon school we want. Instead of noblemen, let us have noble villages of men and women. So this is looking to this new world nobility, instead of the prize being given such as a medal by kings in Sweden in the presence of...
More of an acknowledgement is what you're...
Well, it'll be that the ultimate decisions will be made when we have all the panelists, but what's come up thus far is a medal, not a gold medal, but a gold, silver, and bronze medal, ranging from that to allowances from children whose future is, who bear the future in them, to thoughts of a monetary award. But once we have the whole cast of panelists, those would be the decisions we'll bring to them. Thoughts of the recipients coming to Concord for a week to connect, particularly through the schools with the students. But if, for instance, one recipient has expertise in the area of conflict resolution, there are plenty of Concord citizens who have expertise, so they could find a Concord coterie. So yes.
Have you raised any money?
We haven't begun the process yet. So for money across the board, we're open to input from citizens of Concord how best to honor the recipients. There probably will be a cash prize, but that'll be determined when we have the full panels set.
I think it's important at this point that you distinguish yourselves from, if you will, the town, because it's not a town operation. And so
right.
I think you want to make it clear that this is your organization that is promoting this, because it's easy to get confused
Yeah.
in these things. So.
Yeah.
But thank you.
That's what we're
Anybody else
attempting.
have any comments or questions? Great.
Thank you.
Ms. Celine, any other? Yes, please.
Good evening. I'm Martha Gilpatrick at 140 Revolutionary Road. And again, I would like to thank the committee for all the time and effort you have spent on this NRC issue. And I just have one more fairly brief comment. I was, like the other gentleman who spoke, I was unclear as to who actually governed the NRC. And when you go on their website, it does make it appear as though they serve at both the select board and the town meeting discretion. So somewhere that needs to then be more clearly defined, that is not in fact the case. Because I think that's part of the reason why people are upset. The other comment I would make is I feel like there still has not been enough information disseminated about what is going on. The ranger program, I'm a dog owner. I walk my dog on the paths. I walk them at the Emerson Playground. We're all talking with each other about what are these rangers? What are they supposed to be doing? What is their enforcement? What is their... Nobody has told anybody, actually been upfront about that. And likewise, one of the comments the NRC made was that they were also going to be collecting input from responsible dog owners. I've seen no requests for information on what the regulations might be, how we can best control the situation, how we can best even address the situation. And I've just asked that they be more a little open about the whole process.
Thank you. Yes.
Jeff Young, 264 Bedford Street, Concord. You know, the survey that they're asking now, that they've got out, the whole approach with the rangers and everything, it's just, my one question is why? We were there from day one. We offered our service. We offered the goodwill of all the dog owning community to collectively organize. I created a website, Facebook page to educate people about, you know, picking up their poop, to address the issues that they were claiming were caused to require leashes, which, you know, the majority of us felt was not necessary. So here we are now with these paid rangers roaming the woods, which I encountered one in Punkatasset on a beautiful Sunday. I think it was about 90 degrees. I was going to go there and let my dog go for a swim, which, you know,
Really? You're really going to take your dog there for a swim?
Yeah, in the pond.
Really?
That's we've been doing that for years. I mean, it's I don't see the harm in that.
Do you know about the regulations?
Well,
so you
yeah,
know, and you just think you don't have to pay any attention to them because you don't like them.
Well, I feel that the whole process has been a sham. It's basically been driven by,
I get it.
you know,
You
I
don't
think
like
I've
it,
been
so
through
you
it
don't have to obey.
1,500 times. Well, I don't like who's in the White House either. I'm not listening to him. I'm not doing what he says to do.
So you just pick and choose what you want to do?
Well, I believe in civil disobedience. They were speaking of famous people, you know, from Concord. There's certain, you know, there's thinking for yourself. You know, the revolution started here. I mean, it didn't start because, you know, people sat around and put up with this stuff from some other higher authority. You know, we're all questioning what's the basis for this.
The point that I was trying to get by having this hearing was, and I think made the point that we've got to, at some level, develop a trust among people. Now,
We offered ourselves.
Wait. You know, if one side takes the approach, we're not going to trust them because we don't think they've trusted us, you don't get anywhere.
Which is what they
so
did.
you need to have, I mean, I didn't think that the survey necessarily was a survey that I would have put up, but it was a survey. You get a chance to reply to it and have some input. You can email them. You know, I truly believe they are trying to do what they think is the right thing. Now, whether the communication was always done in the best manner, whether everything has been handled perfectly, no. But we're all volunteers. And unless we try to work together to solve these problems, you know, where are we going to be? We're going to be like in Washington. And that's not the way we want to be.
I agree. And believe me, my patience has been tried time and time again. I've bitten my tongue so much it's probably an inch shorter. You know, it's been a very long, drawn out, and we feel completely ignored. And once again, with seeing these signs go up and the rangers with this, you know, the NRC uniform, it's like this. It's been institutionalized. They've been legitimized. You know, and we've got Border Patrol agents coming down 95. You know, and then it's nothing to do with Concord, but, just our world feels awfully, regulated and over.
We have limited control over the rest of the world. We do have a little bit more control in Concord.
Exactly,
So
exactly.
I would only urge everybody to try to communicate. Try occasionally one-on-one and see.
I have been
I
emailing the
can't
abutters.
guarantee anything.
I've been
but-
emailing the abutters for over a year and been put off for 2 weeks, for 2 weeks, for 2 weeks. And with, in civil ways, not, we went to high school together with a couple of them. There's connections that go beyond all of this, so on. But,
I appreciate your frustration, and I think that
Michael,
we'll leave it at that.
Yeah.
But thank you.
Thank you, and we appreciate your guys' time. I know it's,
Do we have anybody else, a public comment? Okay, we'll move on to miscellaneous correspondence. Do we have any of that? And I guess we can do the liaison reports. Linda, do you want to begin?
I attended a recent meeting of the Affordable Housing Funding Committee, and all of you may have seen the article that appeared in the paper summarizing their work, and at this point, they're looking for feedback. I also attended the Zoning Board of Appeals meeting, and besides individual residential issues, they talked about amendments to moderate housing qualification for PRDs. And apparently that's going to be published at some point online.
I thought it was a good letter that was in the journal. That was useful. But,
I think that it's helpful to hear that PRDs are going to get greater explanation. There'll be greater education about it, because I think there's a general lack of understanding of what it is that we engage with when a PRD comes in.
I attended the Hugh Cargill Trust Committee meeting. They're busy as always. The issue, the overriding issue that is still in front of them is the one that they've been talking about, which is, as we see the long-range plan become finalized and Concord's interest in diversity, economic diversity and others, what does that mean in terms of money that's going to be needed to be available to help support those citizens who are going to need that assistance, and where's it going to come from? Made more complicated by two things, and one we need to bring before the board, so I'll get to that, but it is, we passed the senior tax relief proposal. We have a committee that raises money every year on behalf of the town to support tax relief. It rather has a substantial balance, and I don't exactly remember the amount. And it's likely to be the case with the new law that was passed, that there may be a change in demand, although the committee, the Tax Relief Committee recommended that people were eligible for both. I'm not sure that.
my understanding, because I'm the liaison to the Board of Assessors, is that they take into account any
They would have
other
to count
funding.
it. They'd have to count it as
Yeah.
income.
Yes.
But many people would probably
still
still
qualify.
qualify.
Okay.
But the issue is, on the one hand, should they be penalized? On the other hand, if we really have a lot of need in town and we're making these big contributions to some people, shouldn't we use the money someplace else? They'll get that.
So it's a
feedback.
fairness issue.
It's a fairness issue. The one that does, I think, affect us is trustees of town donation, who have, I don't want to say changed their policy, but certainly the policy before was that interest and gains from trades were made available just for operations for charitable activities in town. And they've changed that to now only the interest, which cut almost in half the amount that was available to them. That's a committee that's appointed by the select board, I believe. And it's in the charge as to how they should view their fiduciary responsibilities. So I think that they have a meeting coming up July 30th, or you're going to be able to go to that. I may try to come because I think we want to tell them that, or talk to them about the charge. So this committee should look at the charge and decide, given everything that's happening, is that still the way we would want to direct them to discharge their fiduciary responsibility? So, yeah. So I think it's an important issue. And it's a good committee. It's not an issue. I think they're doing what they think
Well,
we've
they're trying to
asked them
build
to
a
do.
corpus up so that eventually it'll
Well,
be.
they're just trying to, I think they would say they're trying not to deplete it.
Yeah.
Rather than trying to build it up. But
Yeah.
it's one side of the coin. I also was able to attend the Municipal Light Plant Board meeting. Always a very interesting meeting. Very interesting dilemma that they're dealing with. And they're trying to deal with it in the way they construct rates. Is on the one hand, they want us to conserve, because we passed in town meeting to get greenhouse gases under. On the other hand, it would be better if people switched from gasoline to electricity with respect to their cars if we can get renewable electricity. So on the one hand, we want folks to be conserving, but on the other hand, if they could switch to renewable energy, that would be good. So they're trying to figure out a complicated set of rate structures so that we can somehow match these two sometimes at tension goals. So very interesting. Anybody wants to listen to a very interesting set of conversations, the Light Plant's a good way to spend your Wednesday mornings at 11:30.
Jane, I'm going to bypass you, Alice.
So while we did hear a lot from the NRC, I did want to just report that, and I know you've gotten this from Delia, but they've been discussing some revisions to the 50-foot no-build policy. And nothing has been decided, but they're starting to look at places where it might be appropriate to look at some modifications and a better definition of what is considered a structure, and in order to provide more clarity on how structures within the 50-foot no-build zone may be permitted. So they're reviewing this, and it's going to be under discussion at their July 25th meeting. So that, in fact, I think that may have been some confusion on their end as to why they were here to update us tonight at all. And then I also attended one of the PAC committee meetings, I'm going to blow the PAC act. It's our CCTV, our oversight or our guidance committee on public access and to PEG access. And they are certainly a well-organized committee, focusing on some impressive goals. I thought the chair offered a series of goals that the committee is going to try and work through individually. One is to monitor the effectiveness of the PEG access services in town, help the select board ensure the PEG access services conform to the requirements of the Comcast Concord franchise agreement. And then also to safeguard the public's interest in the community television through policies promoting fairness, equal access, and non-discrimination. Promote quality telecommunication services that reflect the interests and concerns of Concord residents, and then assist the select board in adopting to new technologies from traditional local cable TV to more current telecommunication services. And they're just starting to work through how they would assign or volunteer different members of the committee. I know we have a few more members to be nominated tonight, so it's a growing area of interest. And clearly, we haven't we're not done, but I have to say, for a committee that's dealing with a moving target right now, I think they're doing so impressively.
And I think it was their initial meeting, and they were a very impressive group.
Yes.
Their knowledge and the range, it was impressive.
I felt
I
like a definite neophyte, and I thought I'd spent a lot of time on PEG access, so I'm always happy to find out that I'm the ignorant one.
I have the reporter from the Dog Park Feasibility Committee. They met on July 10th. They discussed the timeline for completing their charge. They plan to have a preliminary report by September 4th, and then we'll have feedback and discussion with the Select Board on our September 10th meeting. They then will have a public hearing on October 17th. Expect the final report to the Select Board by December 3rd, and that'll be a physical report, and then the presentation at a meeting on December the 17th. So they're very organized and pushing forward, and they've got quite a lot of information. I don't know what their final report's going to be, but they've done a very thorough job in terms of looking into the issue.
So how, something that I should have raised a little, are you done?
I am.
You had mentioned when you and I had a chance to chat that we need to have a hearing about speed limits.
Yes.
Yep.
And can we get that, can we do that inside a regular selectmen's meeting?
Yes.
We just open a public hearing and have it? Can we get that done and
On an agenda.
get it on an agenda for soon? Might as well get it
Yeah.
moving here. I don't think there's
I
a lot of opposition to
Don't
that.
think there would be a significant.
Yeah, so we might as well get it over to the Public Works guys so they can do, sorry to be late with
No, I think that's a good point. But you going to handle the nominations?
I am ready to go. All right. Never appreciated the voice of Alice quite so much as tonight. Her wisdom's always great, but the voice is even better. So let's see now. We have got, I move to nominate Ellen J. Hutt of 212 Katarina Heights. I'm sorry. Oh, I apologize. Right. So this isn't, oh, this is an old one, I got it. That shows me how badly I do this. All right, Thomas Kearns of 544 Cambridge Turnpike to the Community Preservation Committee as at-large member. And Jill Kolpak of 20 Concord Green, number 6, to the Council on, or no, I'm sorry, to the,
Gender night.
This, I think, is the,
these are nominations. Sorry. These are both nominations.
Yeah, those are nominations. Those are the two that I just
Cable
heard back.
Advisory Committee? What's the committee?
For the
Cable
PEG,
Advisory.
yeah, for the PEG access.
PEG access committee.
Yeah, those are the two ones that.
for late,
These are late submissions. That's what I'm, sorry. Jill Kolpak of 20 Concord Green, number 6, as well as Frank Breen of 48 Phillip Farm Road, both to the PEG Access Committee. That finishes our nominations.
Did you mention Thomas Kearns?
I did. I
Yeah,
started
good,
with
thank you.
badly, but I did start. And now I nominate for committee appointments. Peter Hewitt of 261 Central Street to the West Concord Junction Cultural District Advisory Committee for a term to expire May 31st, 2021. Douglas Bacon of 410 Lowell Road to the Concord Housing Development Corporation for a term to expire May 31st, 2021. Amy Kaiser of 294 Commonwealth Ave to the West Concord Advisory Committee for a term to expire May 31st, 2021. Nina Nichols first of 48 Eaton Street to the White Pond Advisory Committee for a term to expire May 31st, 2021.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
And then for committee reappointments, Maeve Pardee of 87 Stowe Street to the Library Committee for a term to expire May 31st, 2020.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And now I move to adjourn to executive session for the purposes of discussing contract negotiations, not to return to session.
You do that. Linda, your vote?
Aye.
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 Well
done.
Wow, painful.
Thank you, everyone, for coming.